Blessings upon you today. Welcome to our Cornerstone Word for the Week. I'm Pastor Augustus T. Curry. As always, it's a joy and delight to share with you in the study of the Word. I'm super excited about our study today as we continue in this wonderful series dealing with faith, and particularly this unit within the series, which deals specifically with the ideal that the righteous live by faith. On last week, we looked at faith in the power of God. We looked at Isaiah chapter 40, and now today, in the second lesson of this unit, we're looking at faith in the fiery furnace, faith in the midst of the most troubling and difficult circumstances, faith in the fiery furnace. That's that can be found in Daniel chapter 3. And of course, we follow the International Sunday School Study curriculum. And their text today is Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 28. However, I want us to look at the entire chapter so that we can get the context of the matter and help us in our understanding. Faith in the fiery furnace. This is, of course, dealing with those three boys known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the three Hebrew boys. You may recall they were taken from their homeland and brought here to Babylon and under King Nebuchadnezzar's rule. And he seeks out the best of the individuals that he's taken from Jerusalem, out of the children of God, the children of Yahweh, our God. And he wants to groom the talented tenth, if you will, to be servants to him and to assist him in his kingdom. The chief of which, of course, is one by the name of Daniel. Thus, the name of the book is Daniel, and Daniel recommends these three boys to be part of that talented tenth. King Nebuchadnezzar examines them. He finds them to be in great health, great shape, have great knowledge, understanding. They carry themselves well. They have a great presence, and he ends up elevating them to great positions in his kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar. So let's begin with verse 1 of chapter 3. It says, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, this is the King James Version, he made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. Now, whenever you see the word score in the Bible, that of course means the number 20. So when you see a word such as 60, that means 3 times 20. So here we have King Nebuchadnezzar making an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. So in other words, it's a statue that's 90 feet tall and then 9 feet wide. Interestingly enough, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. It's the same ratio that is found to be exactly the Washington Monument, 10-to-1 ratio. And so, of course, those who consider themselves to be of that group of Masons and others who helped, I guess, in the building of the Washington Monument or the design of it. Perhaps they got that ideal even from way back here in the text today. Interestingly enough, that's quite a colossal statue, and then to be made of gold. Some time ago, just 6 miles outside of the center of Babylon, in Dura, in fact, they found this wide base in the ground, and many believe that to be uh, the base, the foundation for which this giant statue was actually placed. 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. Some would say that it was a statue of him. Many theories about it. Some say that knowing King Nebuchadnezzar and how his ego was and all of that, that some even say it was a phallic symbol. Whatever the case might be, he has it erected. Verse 2 says, Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. What King Nebuchadnezzar is doing at the time is he's trying to unite the political portion of his kingdom with the religious portion of his kingdom so that he can rule over both. He wanted no separation of church and state. He wanted to be over everything. Kind of reminds you of some today on the political scene. He did not want to be held accountable to the laws that he was elected to oversee. And so that's Nebuchadnezzar. So he gets these people together and he has them come to the dedication. But notice there's no record of him announcing what's going to happen specifically at the dedication. So let's look and see what happens when they get there. Verse 3, Then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Verse 4, Then an herald cried out, speaker of the house, if you will, no doubt under the direction and authority of King Nebuchadnezzar, he cries out, To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages. Verse 5, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, those various types of instruments, musical instruments they had at the time. It says, at the time you hear all of that, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. Verse 6, And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. We are not removed from those days, even now, places like Iraq, Iran, other places, even in America, they're still engaging in capital punishment. You remember one by the name of Saddam Hussein. It is said that when the soccer team that represented his nation would play, if a soccer player made an error on the field that was on his team and they lost the game as a result, he would have them thrown into a fiery den or a den of lions, beheaded, even hung. And so we're not far removed from this whatsoever, if at all. Verse 7, Therefore at that time, and again, this is dealing with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You may wonder, where is Daniel? Is Daniel not one of the three or one of the four, including Daniel? Well, he's in another area of the kingdom at this time, some 18 miles away. And so he's not present at this event here in the text. Verse 7, Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Now these Chaldeans, they've been checking out these Jewish boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they've become jealous of the favor the king has showed them. They've become jealous of the honor that they have achieved and have arrived, therefore, to. And so they go to the king, they butter him up. The end of verse 9 again, O king, live forever, appealing to his ego. Verse 10, thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. Verse 11, and whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Verse 12, here comes the accusation. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. So you see the issue with the boys right there. They reveal their own motives in their own statement. But yet they are appealing to the ego of the king. They are using him as a pawn. It's amazing how some people can be so influenced about others just from the negative saying of someone else about them. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, and so you see how flip-floppy he can be. He's just gone from this ideal of great celebration for this image to a period of rage and fury over one comment that the enemies of the Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, has expressed about them. In his rage and fury, he commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. King James Version says men. They were actually very young men, older teenagers, if you will, about 17, 18 or so. They've been taken away again from their kingdom, brought into this foreign land, and they've been there some 3 years. But the king just found such favor again, even in their diet. He would entice them with all type of meat and what have you. They said, no, we're good. We'll stick with the vegetables and the other things that we know to be healthy to eat and drink. And so he elevates them, finds such favor with them. So he calls them in. He wants to give them another chance. And he says, verse 14 again, Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, is it true, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Verse 15, now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, in other words, cool. But if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? And so you see his ego is really out of control. Verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, so they're still respectful of him, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. In other words, we are in our right minds. We know what we're saying, and we know to whom we're saying it to, and most importantly, we know about whom we're saying it about. Listen to what they say. They say, verse 17, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able. There's something about knowing that what you are trusting in has full capacity and ability to see you through. That's just an assurance that comes over you. There's a calm, there's a peace when you know you got somebody with you that sure enough is able to deliver you. It says, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. Isn't it amazing that when you look at the faith of these boys, their faith would not allow them to settle for what they had. Wish I could make that clear. Let me say it this way. Their faith enabled them to not fear losing what they had. They had great position, great power, long life to live in front of them. Their faith did not allow them to fear losing what they had for what they could gain. So many people get to a certain level and then think they have to do certain things to get to keep them there. But the Lord got them there in the first place, and so you don't have to do anything immoral or unrighteous to get what God has for you. And so they did not allow what they had and the fear of losing what they had to prevent them from seeking what they could gain in the future. I think that's a pretty good way to say that. And so it says, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us. We've got great confidence in that. From the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O King. And then I love this part as well, verse 18. But if not, be it known unto thee, O King, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. In other words, get the implication in what they're saying. But if not, be it known unto thee. In other words, it's our will for us to be delivered by God. But we know God has a will that is superior to our will, our human will. God has a greater plan than we even have for ourselves. His thoughts are not our thoughts. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so are the Lord's ways above our ways. God's will is superior. He's got plans for us, and it's not plans to harm us, it's plans to bless us, to make us great. And so it says here in essence that he is able to deliver us, but if it perhaps is his will on this occasion not to, we're still going to serve him and him alone. Perhaps you had a loved one or loved ones, and you prayed for them. You want them to live here forever with you forever. And eventually they had to go. The Lord called them on to glory. But if your faith in God is of such that you know he has a will that is meant to bless you, not to harm you, he's got a greater place for them than you could ever have here. And so you trust his will, just as these 3 Hebrew boys. Yeah, we know he's able. He's able to deliver us from all sickness, hurt, harm, disease, danger, difficulty. But if there's an occasion where he doesn't, just be confident, be glad that he still is able and that he has a greater plan for you. And so when they express this to King Nebuchadnezzar, he, of course, just really goes berserk. Verse 19, then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. That expression 7 times in the Bible is not always meant to be taken literally. 7 means completion, full, to the tilt. And so, to the hilt, I should say. And so it meant just as hot as you can get it. So they want to have the heat in the furnace turned on high, its own maximum, right? Verse 20, and he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they're going to be tied up. And then it says, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 21, then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen and their hats and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. My God. Therefore, because, verse 22, the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's one reason you don't have to worry about getting tack for tack, tick for tack, getting even with enemies, those who despise you, those who speak falsely against you, those who talk about you behind your back. The Bible says those that put them in, they were slain, they were killed by what they were trying to use to kill them. It used to be an old saying, if you go dig a grave, for me, you might as well dig two, one for yourself. Listen, they're trying to take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego out. And what they're trying to take them out with ended up taking them out with in place. Verse 23, and these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Verse 24, then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselors, did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. Verse 25, he answered and said, well, lo, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. You got to love the study of the word. Listen. Sometimes the Lord won't always prevent you from going into your fiery furnace of circumstances, but he does promise he'll be in there with you when you go. And that makes all the difference in the world. That helps to get him the glory. Verse 26. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God. Now, this is the man that set up an image of himself to be bowed down to and worship, And now he's calling the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego the Most High God. In other words, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego weren't the catch. You may wonder sometimes, why are you going through some things that you were going through? Well, let's not be so conceited to think it's all about us, that what we're going through is because of us. We're not the catch, we're just the bait. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were already saved. They were already part of the covenant. They already were faithful. So they didn't need to be saved. So they didn't go in the furnace to be caught, to be saved. Here's the catch here. When the king says, ye servants of the Most High God, the king and his kingdom were the catch. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were just the bait. And sometimes when you go in your fiery furnace of experiences, God is using you. Others are looking at you. And you got a chance to be a witness for him in the midst of your difficulty, in the midst of the fiery furnace that you are facing. And you can be a positive influence on them to come into the kingdom of God. Here's this ruthless king. And now he's declaring, because of them being in the fiery furnace and seeing how they responded through the whole process, and then seeing how God can deliver them. Now he's calling their God the Most High God. And then it says at the end of that 26th verse, then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. I know you may have missed that. Let me try it one more time. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. Okay, just in case you're still not getting it, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that's three. But the king says there's four in there. But only three come out, and the one that's left is the Son of God, meaning that when you go into your fiery furnace, he's already there even before you get there. All you got to do is have faith and believe. Verse 27, and the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was an hair of their heads singed, burned, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. And so, in other words, when the Lord is with you and you have faith and trust in him, no matter what you're going through, you don't have to look like what you've been through, and you don't even have to smell like what you've been in. It says not even the smell of fire had passed on them. You can't even go past a cigar bar and not get the smell on you. Here these men are in the fiery furnace and no smell on them. Verse 28, then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own God. My. Verse 29, therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language would speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not the bait. The king and the people are the catch. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are the bait, not the catch. The king and the people are the catch. You got it. And then whenever you have faith in the Lord, trust in him with your whole heart, no matter what fiery furnace you might have to go through, his promise is you'll always come out better than you were when you went in. And that's how it concludes in verse 30. Then the king, he didn't demote. The Bible said then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Thank God for his word. I pray you've been blessed by that study today. Next week, I'm super excited about our study then as well. We'll continue in the book of Daniel. We'll look at Daniel chapter 6. So read that in advance. Faith in the times of trouble. Faith in the times of trouble. Thank God again for his word. Again, I'm Pastor A.T. Curry, Augustus T. Curry. Again, it's always a joy and delight to share with you. Come see us in person every Sunday morning, 9 a.m., 640 Ebenezer Church Road, Cornerstone Baptist Church. It's a wonderful time. It's an hour of power. Wonderful worship experience. You'll be blessed by it. Always followed by a wonderful complimentary brunch. Just a wonderful time of worship, fellowship, and friendship. May the Lord bless you and keep you real good is my prayer. Until next time, peace.